everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
I'm Molly.
and we have a lot of shows to cover this week. We are doing another episode of Survivor, episode 6, the finale of Love is Blind, and we are going to cover for the first time on Let's Chat Reality, I believe, Dancing with the Stars. We are halfway through season 33, so we figured it's a good time to kind of catch up on the season so far, give our predictions for the second half, and we will talk about all the drama of all of these shows in between. So, Molly, how's your weekend been?
It was a lot of fun. It got hot again in Texas, which obviously is supposed to be, I guess, almost November and it's still in the 90s. So it's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
crazy.
But yeah, at least you got a pool day out of it, though. So that's nice.
I know. Got to take advantage of that while we can, right?
Yeah.
But all right. Well, let's get into some Survivor then. Speaking of outside, I guess.
Yeah. The
Transition
elements.
that somehow. We are at the Murgatory episode, which really at this point is just the merge. I mean, they've kind of changed the name of it, but we've kind of slowly transitioned out of this whole earn the merge thing that we've had on this new era. And now it's basically just the merge at this point, just not calling it that quite yet. But we have the three tribes come together on Tuku's beach, and they discover that they have to search for an advantage to help them in the next immunity challenge. Now, while they're searching, they come across the red paint from Sue's idol search. And Sue thought she had gotten away with that. You know, we saw a little suspicion that she still had some red paint on her, but it didn't seem like that turned into too much at that time. But now there's a lot of speculation about that. People are from their tribe are remembering that and putting two and two together. Caroline sees she puts two and two together with that, and she goes and tells Sue that she knows she has an idol. And Sue tries to deny it at first, but can't really. Caroline says, no, I know, and I'm going to keep your secret. So she seems to be wanting to remain loyal to Sue with that. What do you think about that? Do you think that that is the right move for Caroline to keep that secret, or should she have told anyone about it to use that to her advantage?
Yeah, I like the way that Caroline went about it. I think it's smart to she has that information now more in her power. I would say that keeping it to herself and knowing that Sue can trust her with that is then gonna put Sue in a place of knowing that she needs to work with Caroline. Also, in that sense, she can't if she knows that information about her, then they should work together in that way. So I think it was smart that Caroline kept that information and didn't share it out. But Sue does seem to be a little bit worried about Tiana knowing it or thinking that she has an inkling into that. So I'm sure they're probably foreshadowing that in a sense that's maybe something else is going to come up with that. But at least right now, it seems like it's a good situation that Caroline didn't tell anyone else.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, Caroline and Sue are so close on their tribe, it seems like that. I think having this piece of information kind of for Caroline really will guarantee pretty much that Sue is never going to betray her. This is the little piece of collateral that she needed, I think, to be like, okay, we're going to solidify this as a duo. I want to be playing this game with you, and now you got to kind of stay with me. It's kind of like how, on BB25, how Izzy had that secret of Jared and Suri, where she was like, you know what? I want to be your ally, and this is blackmail, basically, that I have against you. So, day one, we are in this to the long haul. So, yeah, I think that this was a good move for Caroline. And now, it's good to have something that in the future maybe she can use this if she decides that she wants to go against Sue. I think that this is something that she could say, okay, I'm going to keep this in my back pocket. I'm going to keep your secret for now, but, maybe later on in the game, that can change. So we'll see how that plays out. But Genevieve ends up finding this advantage. It was on the buoy in the water, and we saw, at least Sam, probably some other people saw that buoy and decided, it's probably nothing. But Genevieve decided, worth checking out, and that ended up going in her favor. So she ended up being able to skip the team portion of this challenge and just have to compete in the individual portion. So she was the only one guaranteed to get to that second part of the challenge. Now, what do you think of this whole change to this episode, this portion of the game? Because normally at this point, half of the tribe would be safe from the vote, and only the losing half of the challenge would be eligible to be voted out. But this time, like I mentioned, they have a second portion there where it's an individual challenge where just one person ends up getting immunity and then everyone else is vulnerable, basically just like a normal merge vote. So, what do you think about that? Which version of that do you like better?
I think it's nice to see that like it's almost like a merge what you're saying. It's like we're basically there, just only one person's gonna be safe now. So I think it makes sense the way that they changed it because before it wasn't totally fair to half the people, obviously. It's like, well, then I won this challenge, so now I'm safe, and then half the people have a lower percentage chance of making it. So I like that in a sense that like it was expanded a lot to see how people were going to work together once it basically became the merge.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the only thing that I would say, I think this is definitely an improvement over what we had in the past. I think the only thing that I would like even better is to, because I know that Jeff has said like he doesn't love when there's this many people on a tribe, and I think the way to change that is just to do a tribe swap and like delay the merge just a bit, like
Mm-hmm.
1 to 2 episodes, and then maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago we should have had a tribe swap, and
Yeah.
that extends the pre-merge just a bit, but we get some changes during that time. It's not just the same 3 tribes over and over again for so long, and so it makes it so you're not going to get one tribe that gets down to like one person, and you get some intrigue and some complications going into the merge because are you going to be loyal to your original tribe, or are you going to be loyal to the swap tribe, or how does that work out? And I think that could make things really interesting and also make it so you don't have 13 people on one vote, which I don't personally have a huge issue with, but it just seems like Jeff doesn't love that. But I hope that that doesn't mean that they're not going to do this again. They're going to go back to what it was before. I hope that maybe they find another way to fix that problem.
Yeah, no, that would be a smart way to fix that. I think having the swaps, like I miss when they used to do that. Like I like
Mm.
seeing tribe swaps and seeing how different tribes interact with each other once they're not with their original tribe and then have to come back. It's like there's always different dynamics there, which is fun to watch. So I hope that they would do that again.
Yeah, because I think now with 3 tribes, there's a really easy way to do it. You just go from 3 tribes to 2 tribes to one tribe, and I think
Yeah.
that like organically works out really well, and I think would be really interesting, even if it was just for like two, at least do 2 episodes. But I don't think it has to be super long time that we get with the swap tribes or the dissolved tribes, I guess it would be called. Um, but yeah, I think that that could be a really interesting thing. Just not even every season, just try it out. Make it so the tribe don't know what's coming. I think right now it's very formulaic. Like everybody knows in this new era what the formula is, and I think that that could be kind of something that could be really interesting. Like where they don't know, are we going to have a swap? Are we not going to have a swap? I think like that uncertainty could be very interesting to see like how they kind of plan for the future. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But next we see that Kyle ends up winning the individual immunity challenge. And after that, really the editing makes it super clear to us that it's going to be Rome at this tribal, and he does not see it coming at all. He is very confident that he is the puppet master here. He is going up to all these people saying what Kyle has told him, that he's coming after them, trying to get Kyle to be the vote, and just it seems like, and then uh Saul ends up telling Kyle and confronting him about what Rome is saying, and so Kyle denies it, obviously. Saul says, yep, that's what Rome does, and it kind of ends up spiraling that nobody believes anything that Rome is saying, and it's decided that he's causing too much chaos and he's going to be the vote tonight. So what did you think of that editing choice? Because even like with down to the votes, we saw more votes than we normally do about people voting for Rome, and it becomes clear. Like I think we see 5 votes for him, which is just one fewer than needed. And so it becomes very clear that Rome is going home. There's no intrigue in that, like, oh, maybe it's somebody else, like we normally see. So what were your thoughts on the way that they decided to edit that to us?
Yeah, it was an interesting choice because I feel like sometimes going into travel, the way that they edit it, just like, oh, what's gonna happen here, and giving that more suspense level to it. In this episode, we didn't have that. Like, you just knew, oh, we know Rome is gonna go home. But it also still was exciting in a way because it's like, well, maybe they're trying to change our minds and thinking that this is so certain that it's going to happen that then it won't. So, like, I was kind of thinking that at first. I was like, wait, like, because they did that, does that mean they're not doing Rome? But I couldn't think they could do anything else at that point. I was like, but that's not possible. But you never know. So that kind of did add another layer in that sense. But overall, it was interesting seeing that editing. Now looking back, that it obviously it was Rome, and seeing how obvious that was. But I don't think they're going to continue that obviously in future weeks. I guess because this was pretty unanimous in a decision in that way, so it made sense in the editing choice. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. What about you?
Yeah, I thought this was actually a really smart way to do it because it really seemed like there wasn't any intrigue here. Like it was going to be Rome. And so I think rather than trying to convince us that it might be something else, to where like it actually, that was never a possibility and it was just going to be kind of this fake out for the sake of it. I think that this was a smart way to be like, okay, I'm not interested to see if it's going to be Rome. I know it's going to be Rome, but I really want to see his reaction because he's
Yeah.
so overconfident. So I think like it was very reminiscent to me of the Survivor Micronesia when Eric Reichenbach was voted out in Final Five, where he gave up his immunity necklace. Because it was like, once he gave up that immunity at Tribal to Natalie, we all knew it was going to be him. And we saw every single vote for him. And it was just so much fun to see all this, like, oh my God, I can't believe we actually pulled this off. And there wasn't any intrigue of like, oh, who is it actually going to be the vote? Like, it was, oh my God, I cannot wait to see him find out that he's actually made the dumbest move in Survivor history. So this was obviously a little bit different, but I think it was still like, oh my God, I can't wait to see once he sees all the votes starts to kind of click to him. Oh my God, I'm getting vote after vote. It's me tonight. So that was fun, and I think that it was, yeah, I think that that was a smart way to do it.
Yeah. And then I feel like his reaction to it, like, actually was like it was like he was happy almost. Like he was like, wow, like you guys did a great job. Like this was awesome being here. Like he didn't want to leave on a sour note, which I kind of appreciated there,
Mhm.
even though like he did rub people the wrong way in certain aspects. Like I think everyone did overall, it seems like people didn't like hate him. They just were like annoyed about him or like
Mhm.
things that he would do. But yeah, so it was interesting seeing his reaction though. I think that like he obviously was really shocked because he was so confident, but that's part of his personality. He just has a big ego, so it's like it makes sense. So I think it was funny to see that though overall.
Yeah, and so he has in exit interviews said that he wasn't actually all that surprised. Like he thought there was like a 50% chance it was going to be him. And I don't know how much of that is just revisionist history to try to like protect his ego, or I don't know, cuz it did seem like he was pretty shocked when the vote started coming. Like I really couldn't tell. I tried watching it back after he said that because he was like, "Oh, if you look at my face, you can tell like, oh, I wasn't actually that surprised when I saw it." And I was like, "But were you?" Like I don't know. It's a little bit hard for me to tell whether he was or not, but I believe that he did not see it coming. I could also believe though that like he kind of knew maybe there was a slight possibility,
Yeah.
but I don't know. He did also mention something in his exit interviews, which has been a little bit controversial, about how Kyle apparently made some sort of off color comment about Sue and Caroline that was like something outside of the game. And he gave no indication of what it was, but he was like, oh, like I could never have worked with Kyle after he made that comment about Sue and Caroline. And like that was against what I stand for, and I would never have worked with Kyle after that. And so I don't know exactly what all that is about, but if we hear more, we will let you all know. But that was a comment he made on multiple exit interviews that I listened to with him, and he really didn't say anything about what it was. But I that's all the information that I have on that. But do you think that getting out Rome was actually the right move for everyone here? Because Rome said that he was a little bit confused as to why he was the vote, because he felt like he could have been a shield for people and that he was kind of telling people what he was hearing about them that other people were saying, and that he thought that that would be something that would get people to believe they could trust him. So do you think that it was actually the right move to get out Rome at this point?
I feel like overall, for like the harmony of the tribe, yes. Just because people didn't love how he was always scrambling and going around telling everyone everything in that sense. That like it makes sense that way. I feel like gameplay wise, like if people could get over the fact that they just didn't really like him, then maybe not in the best way for the game. But I think that especially right now, like there's still so many people in there getting a vote for a general like group of people. It's just the easiest way is to go with someone you just don't really like.
Mhm.
So I think that makes sense there instead of having to like orchestrate like this whole blind side and then people might share it. Like you just don't know how to make a big move in that in that setting. I think it's harder. So I think it was the right move at this time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like it's too early. Like if everybody has this consensus, it's too early to try to flip that many people.
Yeah.
And for someone that you don't really care all that much about, if they go or stay, like there, I feel like I could see myself if I wasn't like on the receiving end directly of Rome's wrath. I could see myself being like, this really isn't the best move for me, probably, but it's also not terrible. And so, like, I'm just gonna kind of let this be. Like, this is something like in Big Brother, maybe like where you have a full week where you could kind of like try to convince people and you think about it and whatever, like, and you can kind of have a game plan. But on Survivor, it's like, okay, I have like today, I have a few hours to like do this, so I'm just gonna kind of go with what everybody else is gonna do, and it's not me, so it is what it is, type of thing. And Rome, I don't think is most people's closest ally. Like maybe was Genevieve, but I think Genevieve kind of accepted the fact that maybe he's not so good for her game to be so closely associated with. So yeah, I think it was a fine move for most people here.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, do you think that we will see Rome again on Survivor 50?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I think maybe Jeff seems to like him. So and he was being so
Oh
nice to
yeah,
Jeff.
I forgot to even mention here. He took Jeff's place for a moment
Yeah.
at Tribal.
Yeah, so that I feel like I don't know. In a way, I'm like Rome is gonna get himself there. I think like I feel like he
Rome just shows
himself,
up.
yeah, he'll just go. Like I don't know if he's gonna get asked to go. I think he's gonna ask like over and over again, and then the production is gonna be like, okay, we'll send you.
Imagine that everyone just shows up to the beach and it's just Rome instead of Jeff. Like as a joke for like a good 5 minutes, and everyone's like, "What is happening here?"
Yeah. No, that was funny when he took over his spot.
Yeah.
But
That was
I
like one of
think
those
I
things where
don't
I think Jeff knew it was going to be Rome that night, and he was
yeah.
just like, "Let's give Rome this moment. Like, we know it's him. There's no question about it. Like, let's just give him this moment to, live out his dream for a second." And that's a nice little parting gift
Yeah.
for Rome.
I
And
mean,
Rome like
because Rome is
started out the
controversial.
episode too.
Yeah.
He was narrating the previously on, so like this episode was just a love letter slash hate letter to Rome,
I
maybe.
know the juxtaposition there.
Sorry, what
But
were you saying
I think
before I
in general, I
interrupted?
think I could see him coming back.
Yeah.
Because he was like aside from his ego and seeing all that, like I feel like he was a decent player of like he had good intent and like trying to think of strategy, just didn't execute it really well. So it would be fun and he's obviously controversial, so like that makes it interesting too. If he were to come back, like how that would go with other people he would be playing with. So we could see a potential with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. If I saw Rome on the list of filming Survivor 50, I would say, okay, that makes sense. He was a huge character, and I think it would be very interesting to see, like, does he play the same way in a future season? Has he learned anything from this time? I think that could be very interesting to see. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I also he was out kind of early pre jury. So by the end of the season, how much are we going to remember Ro? Like, well, I think we'll remember him, but like more characters will have come out of the season that we're not seeing a ton of quite yet.
Hmm.
That by the end of the season, I think we'll probably have a few people who we would rather see over Rome.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Yeah.
all right, well, let's move into some Love is Blind. Molly, take it away.
Yes. Well, we had the finale drop this past week, so got to see the weddings and also a breakup. So we start off this episode with Ramses and Marissa breaking up, which this was the most interesting part of the whole episode because the rest of it was a little bit boring. But what were your thoughts first? Let's talk about the breakup, the sad part of the show. When people break up this season, we've seen a lot of breakups. But what are your thoughts overall on their situation?
Yeah, I would say this is one of the most dramatic breakups that I remember ever seeing on Love is Blind that I can think of. I mean, like, I feel like most of the time when there's a breakup, like, yeah, one of the parties might be blindsided a little bit, might be kind of not haven't seen it coming or pretty upset about it, but like Marissa was distraught. She did not see this coming at all whatsoever. She thought they were going to go down the aisle. It seemed like she would have said yes. Um, yeah, I don't think that she saw this coming at all, and that was really kind of heartbreaking to see. I felt so bad for her. I mean, like, I think that in the long run, she will see probably when watching this season back. I'm sure she is thankful now that this happened at this point and that they didn't get married, and then she watches the show back and I think some of the things that she would see probably wouldn't be thrilled about. And probably by this point, I mean, it's been a year. Like, I just can't see them having had a happy, successful marriage. So I think that I watched this with the mindset of this is good for her, but like this is really hard to watch too.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like just obviously having your relationship shown to the world is also not easy. Like they're just having to film like all these raw moments. So I think there's also obviously parts to it. Maybe like we didn't get to see the full context of the conversation. So um but I think they gave us a good view of like what their breakup was, and it was really sad obviously for Marissa, but I think also what you're saying, and like it's good for her that this happened now and not when she goes on the aisle, or like he's like no at the altar, like that kind of stuff too, that would she be building it up even more. So I think it's good at least that he broke it off before they went into the wedding day. So I respect Ram just a little bit more for that side of it, but it's still obviously sad, and like she's felt like it was gonna be him, but obviously not.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and based on this season's track record, I'm shocked we even saw this on camera. So
yeah,
a
we
lot
did
about
see it.
that.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting to me is that this season, like you mentioned, we've had 3 breakups now, pre-wedding.
Hmm.
Now, in the first, I would say 4 seasons of this show, we barely ever saw a couple break up before the weddings. Like whether they ended up saying yes or no, like pretty much every couple who made it out of the pods made it to the altar. And now that's very much not a given. And it seems like these last couple seasons, if a couple is going to break up, they typically don't make it to the, like, I don't think we've seen a no at the altar in the last 2 seasons, have we? I think season 6, I think I'm trying because I'm
Oh,
trying to remember. I know like Chelsea and Jimmy broke up before the altar.
yeah. I'm thinking about
And
it. I
then
can't think of it off the top of my head, but
okay, I'm gonna
that's a
look
good
this up.
point. Yeah. Well, I know because we're also talking about this with in terms of the allegations towards production. Maybe it has
Yeah.
something to do with that too, and that they're just trying to let people do things more that they maybe wouldn't have wanted to allow previously for the sake of the show. Now that they're like, okay, we're in a little bit of heat here, like we can't just let people like suffer as much as they want. Suffer is a strong word, but like get to the point that they don't want to be and let them
Mhm.
end it before that. If they realize that it's not going anywhere, like to just end it before the wedding. So it makes it less dramatic, obviously, for the wedding days because we know what's going to happen at that point where you're like, okay, these couples are still together. They're getting married now. But it obviously is better for their own mental health if they are able to break up before it.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
did
was
you look it
wrong.
up? Okay.
AD and Clay made it to the altar, and then Clay said no.
Yes.
So there has been a breakup at the altar, but yeah, Chelsea and Jimmy broke up before. Laura and Jeremy broke up before. Brittany and Kenneth broke up before. Yes,
Yeah.
of course, they broke up well before. So there definitely, it's a lot more common for couples who are breaking up to do so before the altar than get to the altar and do it at that point these days. Whereas in the first few seasons, that was what the show was about. Was,
Yeah.
you get engaged in the pods, and then you have a few handful of weeks to see what life is like, and then you go to the altar and either say yes or no. It's like decision day on Married at First Sight. It's a given that most couples are going to get to decision day and then make a choice. But yeah, I do think that the allegations are a big part of why that has changed. I agree with you. I think that that's what the difference has been, is that they probably want to make sure, like, okay, if you're unhappy as a couple, you're out. Like, we're not going to force unhappy couples to stay together because that could lead to some bad things happening, which then the show's liable for. So I think that that definitely has made the change. And I don't know. I do think that it makes I don't know if it makes the show better or worse. I'm trying to think, like, in terms of just purely entertainment standpoint, not like the mental health of these couples, which I'm glad that they're now allowing them to quit the show. And that, sorry, that's another point that I want to make. That is a change in their contract, that since the allegations, one of the things that the big points of those allegations was that there was a fine if you quit the show early.
Yeah.
And they took that fine out because the producer said that was never something that we were going to enforce. But we, it's an old clause from the early days of reality TV, but we were taking it out because it's not something that we are, that we stand for. So I do think that that maybe is why couples feel more comfortable, or production feels more comfortable with kind of not in trying to enforce that. So yeah, sorry, that was something that I wanted to mention that I forgot about. But now I'm forgetting what point I was trying to make before that. But yeah, whether it makes the show better. Yeah. I think that it makes the earlier episodes better, but it makes the finale really boring, is
Yeah.
basically kind of the conclusion that I've come to.
Yeah, because I feel like we'd see a lot more of the fluff conversations, but now we're like able to see breakups happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it more interesting. Like this episode would have been really boring if we weren't getting that conversation in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because then we go into the couples who do get married. So we see Tyler and Ashley, and they walk down the aisle. They say yes. But obviously, we do have information from Tyler's baby mama about more things that have come out that weren't shared in the show that have now been surfaced. So you want to share that thread that you saw on Reddit?
Yes. Okay. So since our last recording here, we talked a little bit about this whole situation last week, but there has been, so the mother of Tyler's children posted a video on Instagram telling her side of this whole story. And basically, she is saying that what Tyler said about, like, the story that Tyler gave on the show was basically true for their first child. So she and Tyler were best friends. And so this woman and her now ex-wife were trying to have a baby. And he decided to donate his sperm so that they could have a child. And so that was what happened for child number one. Now, Tyler at that point was never supposed to be a parent involved in their life in that way, um, just a sperm donor who, then allowed this couple to have a baby and they could live happily ever after with that. And he would kind of not be involved. But then the mother split from her ex wife and they tried to co parent together. For some reason, that didn't work out. The ex wife is no longer involved in the child's life, apparently. And at that point, Tyler becomes a more active parental figure in this child's life because doesn't want the child to be grow up raised by just a single mother. Now, at that time, I guess then they develop some feelings towards each other and they move in together. And at that point, they had twins together, where he was meant to be a father figure to these twins. Now, this was unplanned, apparently. This kind of just happened, and it was less than a year after the first child was born. So now, they lived together for a year apparently and tried to parent, but at no point, allegedly, were they in an active relationship together at that point. But they were living together and co parenting together. Now, apparently, he was very involved in their lives up until the point that he left for the show. So it's really weird to me that this all is happening and he's trying to say, like, oh, maybe they know my name. Like, what?
Yeah. No,
How is
that is
that?
crazy.
What? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Unless he told her off camera more information that he was like, I don't want this to be on the show. I don't know. That's literally the only explanation I can think of, is that he was honest with her off camera and didn't want all that to be brought up on camera.
Yeah. No, it is crazy that like that's a weird situation to be part of in general. I feel like that's not a normal situation that you're going to see every day. So I'm surprised that like I'm curious if they're going to bring this up. I mean, they have to bring this up in the reunion, and then we're also going to see if they're also still together to this day.
Hmm.
Because I mean, that's obviously if Ashley were to find out like when she goes home, or like if he's still lying or like hiding information from her, I'm sure that's not going to have much substance, or like maybe she can see past it, which good for her if she can, but like I don't know if I could in that situation. That like is a big deal, and that you're lying about something that's a really big deal there. So I don't know what's gonna happen. I think I don't want them to like, I don't, for Ash's sake, I would hope that like maybe they're still together, but I don't think they are.
I kind of think they are still
You
together
think so?
because so Ashley posted on an Instagram comment of somebody like talking about Tyler's this whole situation, and she was kind of defending him, being like, you don't know the story, these are all rumors, don't judge him based on all these allegations that are unproven and blah blah blah. And it like really seemed like you wouldn't be defending him like this if you weren't still together with him. Like that just gave that vibe off that
Yeah.
I don't know. I
So I guess she maybe heard some other stuff from him that we're not seeing,
Well,
but
that's
yeah.
what I think, is that I at this point have to just like for my own sanity believe that he was honest with her off camera and was like, I, don't want to bring maybe like the ex into this whole situation, and like there may be certain things that like the mother had told him not to mention on the show, like maybe as he was leaving for the show, like he said like, what are you comfortable with me saying on camera about it? And so maybe like there's still no excuse for him waiting that long to say anything at all whatsoever to Ashley. Like, the amount of time that he waited to bring this up at all was insane, and then to not bring it fully up at that point is even more insane. But yeah, I just have to think that he told her more
Yeah.
than what we're seeing. But I get we'll get answers at the reunion, I'm sure. Hopefully.
Yes, we'll see just in a few days
Yeah.
about that. But now let's move into my favorite couple, Garrett and Taylor. So we see them also get married, and I thought that their wedding day was cute, that they both were seeing their parents both saying that their parents both each individually got married on the 13th as
That's
well,
insane.
which is crazy. And they're getting married on 30, or they got married
Yeah.
on the 13th. So it's funny they don't tell us like the month because they don't want us to know how long ago this was
Yeah.
filming.
It was like
Um,
2004.
yeah. Like on the 13th, we're getting married the same day. But yeah, so I thought that was cute. And obviously we see Garrett's go up at this point that we know that they're married. And I think that they're still married and will stay married. So yep. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're still together. Just kind of, I don't know. Based on his glow up, it really feels like that was her influence. We've mentioned that before. I just can't imagine that. I mean, unless something big happened in between that we're not aware of at all, nothing that we've seen on the show to me would indicate that they would like watch this show back and
Mhm.
decide they shouldn't be together anymore. So, like, it would have to be something that we are completely unaware of if they're not together anymore. So, based on what I know, I'm going to say that they are still together and will live together forever.
Yes, for sure. And do you have any predictions for the reunion this week?
I think we will hopefully get answers to the whole Ashley and Tyler situation. That's what I think I'm most curious for. I'm very curious to see some of the couples that are no longer together, that have broken up before, to get some answers on like Hannah and Nick, and how Hannah sees, watching the show back and watching herself, and if she has any regrets about that, how that all that was. I'm interested to see, yeah, just kind of updates from all of those couples that have broken up before the wedding day, to see kind of where things stand now with all of them. And I hope that Nick and Vanessa actually ask the right questions this time.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll have an interesting reunion, so we'll tell you all more about that next week. But now let's get into Dancing with the Stars. So let's just go back and talk about a little bit about our histories in watching the show since we haven't talked about Dancing with the Stars yet on our podcast. So when was your first season that you watched, Michael?
Yeah, I can't believe we've never talked about Dancing with the
Yeah.
Stars. I was thinking about that the other day. That was like, wow. I mean, like, I guess we kind of very, very briefly maybe talked about it when we did that like talent competition show episode, but we really didn't get into any details of it. So, yeah, Dancing with the Stars was actually probably one of the very first shows that I have watched since day one, season one live. Because it started in 2005, and I really kind of started getting into these, reality TV in 2004. And so by that point, most of these like kind of legacy shows like Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, blah, 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 like Bachelor, they had all started already. So like I was kind of coming in a few seasons into those shows. But Dancing with the Stars started kind of right at that perfect time for me where like I was able to watch it from the very beginning until now. So yeah, I've been a big fan of this show. I've watched probably basically every episode of every season that I can think of. And yeah, I love Dancing with the Stars. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know the exact first season that I started, but I definitely started watching it in middle school. So a little bit after you
So
did,
just a couple
but
years ago, yeah.
yeah. So when I was probably in like 2010 maybe, I started watching it and I always like watching it as well. Like I think that it's always interesting seeing like I like dancing shows and seeing celebrities on it is always fun to see that those dynamics there. So I've been a fan of Dancing with the Stars as well for a while now. I haven't seen all of the seasons since I started just because life got
Yeah.
busier or just things I just missed some episodes and things and I stopped watching the whole season. But overall, I've really enjoyed watching it and this season has been really good so far. So let's just talk more about that. So, what are your thoughts on this season and the cast?
I think it's been a really good season so far. I feel like for whatever reason, this season seems to be in the media, like just people are talking about it a lot more than I've any season that I can remember in recent history. Like, it just feels like the show is more relevant than it's ever been in pop culture, and that's exciting to see as somebody who's, continued to be a fan of the show even when just a few years ago, it was taken off of ABC for a season and put on Disney Plus, where, they probably thought, "Hey, it's, better than canceling it. We might as well just try it and put it on Disney Plus," and then that season ended up, doing really well, I think, and they ended up putting back on ABC after that because a lot of people complained that they, couldn't watch it. And this show, I would say, although now it seems to be skewing younger than most and pretty much any other show on TV, for a long time, this show was notorious for skewing very old in the audience. And when you put a show that's skewing old on Disney Plus, where it's only on streaming and so older people can't figure out how to stream things. There was a lot of uproar about that, and so I think for whatever reason, now that since they put it back on ABC last year, it seems to be one of the youngest skewing shows, and I don't know how that happened, but I would say that I think a big part of that is probably the Riley Arnold effect, and I think that Riley has allowed for, she's really embraced TikTok, and she's the first real Gen Z pro, I would say, that they had starting last season. And Harry and Riley blew up on TikTok. And I think that that has probably ushered in a much younger skewing audience for the show. And as silly as that sounds, I think that that actually did have an effect, probably on the kind of the average age of the viewers that are watching this show now, and that I think that's continued through this season.
Yeah, the power of social media. And we're seeing that across all of the couples now for this season, with Riley and Steven obviously doing a lot of content together and having really good, just like everyone and all of the cast, I feel like, especially with Alona and Alan, they have really funny TikToks. And same with just in general with like the whole cast. I feel like they all play on each other, which is funny to see.
Mm-hmm.
But then also in particular, I feel like a big talking point of this season was with Brooks and Gleb. And anytime that there's like the showmance of the couples, like the answer, the partners, and there's something romantic happening, which was funny also to see in the comment section. Everyone's tagging Ezra, being like, Ezra, get in here. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, everyone kind of was involved in it. But there was a kind of a roller coaster of things happening with Brooks and Gleb there that I didn't know if they were dating or not. And then recently, Brooks was sharing on her TikTok that he ended things and they had matching tattoos and he moved in with her. There was a lot, a lot of things that were going on
Wait,
there.
he moved
So
in with her?
yeah, apparently I saw a TikTok on that
They were
recently.
eliminated a week ago.
Yeah,
What?
I don't know. It was interesting. Quick fling if it was ever anything serious. But like, I don't know. It was an interesting thing. I feel like people just really wanted to root for them as a couple, and obviously like
Do you think
they kind of
people?
hooked up, I guess, but
Do you
not
think
like
people
for
were
very
rooting for
long.
them? I actually think the opposite. I think people were like, the audience was really nasty towards them.
Really?
Yeah,
I
people
seen
did
more
not like
positive.
them.
Oh.
I think that's why they were voted off. I mean,
Well, I
like,
know people didn't like them on the show, but I thought people wanted them to date like in real life.
I don't know. I think that the audience felt this is what I got. Now, maybe
Okay.
like I think this is one of those things where like I could be kind of on a different side of TikTok than you are, and the reactions of people you're seeing are very different than what I'm seeing. So like it's very possible that just that's based on kind of who you're following and what content you're getting.
Algorithm.
What I saw was that people really felt like this was a made for TV relationship
Oh.
and not genuine, that they were doing this, playing this up in a way to because they felt like a showmance would get votes, and it didn't feel like a genuine relationship, which then was confirmed by the fact that they break up a week after they're eliminated. So that was kind of the vibe that I got, that people were kind of happy to see them go.
Yeah, I have seen those too, but I think in like so I guess I kind of overstated a little bit. I guess people weren't like happy to see them together, but it just made it for some more like talking points and like
Yeah, yeah,
make
yeah, yeah.
make it to be interesting to be in the show and potential couple there. But then because people did feel like they were playing it up and not really being genuine there, then they obviously didn't get to stay.
Mhm.
But and they weren't like the best dancers also. Like I mean, like talent wise, like they were
Yeah.
good, but like not like amazing. So I think it makes sense that they were eliminated. But overall, with we've seen, I agree. Like in this season specifically, like so much has been talked about with everyone on this show, just because of social media. I think is obviously Riley is a big contributor to that. So I think that's really great for the show, and it's just getting more people to watch it. And also with the specific cast that we're seeing from this season, I think that also has a part in it that we have some really big people that already had really big presences on social media. So that
Mhm.
helps it as well. So I think that's another aspect to it that like these people sometimes like you're not gonna have people with big social media following, but this season we do like with Joey, with Jen, with Steven, like those people like are bringing in their fans obviously too to the show, so that also makes it fun.
And I also think too, with TikTok being what it is now, the last two seasons we've kind of had this like viral dance that has come out of the season. Last season it was Harry and Riley's first dance. There was this whole TikTok trend that went with that
Yeah.
they fully embraced. And now we have Danny's dance from a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
This contemporary dance has gone viral on TikTok. And so I think like having TikTok just as a thing with dancing, I think that these two things just go hand in hand and has allowed
Mhm.
for these viral trends to happen. Whereas before TikTok, that wasn't so much a thing with like just Instagram or Twitter, before 2020. So I think that the seasons now with, the ability for these dances to go viral and for people to do their own versions of it, I think has given Dancing with the Stars a whole nother avenue to like become relevant in pop culture.
Yeah. Oh no, I see so many of those videos trying the leg pull up
You know what's
movement.
crazy? It took me like a minute to realize that was, even though I watched the dance on Dancing with the Stars and then I'm watching the TikToks, it took me a minute to like put the two together that like, oh, that's Danny's dance. Like I didn't even realize that there was a connection there for a minute.
That's funny. Yeah, well, good segue. We can talk about some of the dances we've seen this season.
Yeah.
So do you have any favorite couples?
So I think like okay, there's like a couple to me, there's like two kind of categories here. There's the ones that I think are actually the best, and then the ones that are like the most fun to watch. So I think the best is probably Chandler. I think just technical wise, like she's probably the best dancer there. To
Hmm.
me, she's not the most fun to watch though. And I think to me, like I think Joey's very fun to watch. I think that Joey is the most surprising to me of how good he is. Like I honestly expected him to just be another bachelor guy that like grocery store Joe. Like made it kind of far just because he's fun, but like a terrible dancer. So like that was kind of what I expected from him. But oh no, he is amazing. And I think like sometimes when you expect less from somebody and they surprise you, they even seem better than they actually are potentially. And I think that's the category that he's in, where he's very, very good. But I think he even seems better just because you didn't expect it from him. So I think he's a very much contender to win here. I think that I think Steven and Alona are just really fun to watch because you can tell that they're having so much fun. I don't think that they're amazing. They're both actually probably a little bit worse than I expected them to be, just because I feel like Olympians I just expect to be amazing dancers for whatever reason, even though that doesn't really make sense.
When
But
they're the gymnasts, they are because like they have like
yeah.
those real like the floor routines and all that stuff. But when they're like strength based things, like because male gymnastics is always not the same as, or
Mhm.
I mean, because Steven only does the pommel horse. But with Alona, like she's a rugby player. Like I obviously you're gonna be a little more stiff in that sense too.
Hmm. But like, yeah, I don't know why that didn't click to me like
Yeah.
before week one, where I was like, oh, these two are Olympians, they're gonna make the finals, they're gonna be getting tens every week, like they're amazing. But yeah, you're right that that really doesn't correlate based on what both of them do.
But they
But
have a lot of fans, so they are still making it far.
oh yeah, and I think that they will. I don't think that they're the next ones out. Like I think they're
Yeah.
gonna make it pretty far, but I think that they're just really fun to watch, and so that's what's gonna like bring them far is just their uh the joy that they seem to bring to the show and their dances. So yeah, I would say those to me are probably my favorites. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with those. I also like seeing Dwight Howard with
Hmm.
Daniela. I think they also are a lot of fun to watch, especially with the height difference there. It's interesting to see. Daniela is such a good choreographer for that, which she's won in the
Yeah,
past with another 7 foot guy, or I don't know how tall he was, but really tall guy that like she understands that dynamic, which is cool that she's so like she's already kind of used to that, but like she's obviously doing a really good job with Dwight as well. So I like them as well. But I agree. I feel like everyone left right now. I like watching, so it's fun to see each week the new dances that they perform, and every time I'm watching, I'm like, wow, this is exciting. Like I want to see how they perform, and it's always been living up to the expectations. So that's been good. I mean, even with the Olympians with Steven and Alona, I want them to be slightly better, but it's just because what you're saying is like you think that they have more of those skills, and then they do it, and you're like, okay, well, like obviously this is hard. Like they can't be pros. Like they can't be the most amazing dancers if they have other things going on that they are obviously a pro at. So it
yeah,
makes
and like
sense.
I feel like people were expecting Steven to be so good, like so amazing at this, that like they've started to blame Riley a little bit from what I've seen, and they're saying like Riley's not doing a good job as a pro, and she's not bringing out the best in him, and like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you said, like his experience as an Olympian does not, with the pommel horse particularly, does not correlate in the same way that like Sean Johnson did on Dancing with the
Mhm.
Stars, or like, some of these other gymnasts that like I feel like their background is so much more uh helpful for this, whereas Stevens is not quite as corollary there. So like I think that people need to kind of remember that and not just blame Riley for him not doing as well as they expected him to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, do you think this season the judges scoring has been fair? Like, what are your thoughts on overall of the judges?
It's been a little controversial this season. They're scoring a little bit differently than normal. Like week 1, the scores were very high. Like we in normal seasons, we see fours, we see a lot of fives. Probably six is kind of the average week 1 score. 6, 7 is kind of like okay, you're probably going to make it pretty far in the season. And then 8 is like a 10 for week 1. This season, it seemed like we got very few fives, a lot of sevens, more eights than normal. Like it skewed really high. And then throughout the whole season, that's kind of continued where like last week it was like 8 after 8 after 8 after 8, and it's like why are we even scoring these people at this point? Like if everybody's going to get basically the same score relatively, like given, give or take 3 to 4 points difference, the scores are meaningless at that point. Like everybody's basically on even playing field, and it's going to be 100% viewer vote is going to decide who goes home. So I just wish that we would see a wider range of scores throughout the season. And it feels like there's certain people, but this always is the case, that certain people feel underscored, certain people feel overscored. Like judges have their favorites just like we do at home. And I think that, kind of sometimes affects things where viewers get a little bit upset, but I think it's bound to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they probably are hearing this feedback though from if they're on social media, they see people's videos on this. So maybe they'll start changing things, but at this point, it's like they're already halfway through the season. Like they're probably not
Yeah.
changing it that much. Like it has been pretty high scoring, but we'll see what happens the rest of the season. That's why the votes really do matter, because that's really what's helping people stay and go. But I feel like that
Yeah.
always matters. Like, I don't know how they factor in the judges' votes
It's
compared to
very
the.
complicated.
But we also have seen some guest judges in this season. So we've had Rosie Perez, Gene Simmons, and Mark Ballas. So did you like those as guest judges? And if you think, do you think there should be a fourth judge added?
I liked 2 out of the 3. I think that Rosie did a very good job. I think that Mark did an excellent job. Like, I could see if they decided to add a permanent 4th judge, which I don't want them to do. I think that 3 judges is the right number of judges to have on this show, most of the time. I like a guest judge every now and then. I think that that keeps things interesting. But because I feel like at this point, like, you know what each of these 3 judges is going to say to each dance pretty much. Like, I feel like at this point, Carrie Ann and Bruno have been on for all 33 seasons. I feel like I can give their commentary before they do. Derek
I
is a little
know.
bit newer, and like I think that Derek is a fantastic judge, perfect replacement for Len. But I think even at this point, like he's been on a few years, like I kind of feel like I get a good sense of what he's going to say. So it's nice to throw in a little bit of a wild card every now and then. But I don't want a permanent 4th judge. They've tried it in the past, and I feel like it's too much time spent on the judges. And it same with American Idol. I think that in The Voice, even I wish that they had 3, but I think that 3 judges is the right number. But Gene Simmons, I would like an apology personally for Gene Simmons being a guest judge. He was so creepy. He was like, oh, it was really problematic. It felt racist, honestly, the way that he scored. Like the fact that Jen and Phaedra got 5s from him, like, and everyone else got like higher scores than any of the other judges gave, like from like it felt very problematic in every way possible. And I am a little bit surprised, honestly, that like ABC and Dancing with the Stars didn't come out with a statement after that episode, because that was going viral for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with that. I feel like obviously Rosie and Mark were great, but not Gene. And then I think to the point about a permanent judge, I think it also makes sense for them to only have 3 and not get in a fourth, just because, like what you're saying, it's just so much time that's spent on the judges if there's a fourth one. Like, we already know the commentary, but it's still fun to see like that the 3 judges that we have, like they make sense, and I like the 3 of them, so I don't think they need to add a permanent one. So
Yeah, but Mark
that
was great. Like if
yeah.
Bruno decided to leave, I think Mark would be a great replacement for him, because like Mark and Derek have such good chemistry. They've known each other forever. Mark, I think putting former pros as
Yeah.
judges is the right call always, if they are looking for new judges, because they understand what they're going through, in a way that nobody else does. I think that they're already familiar, they're already associated with the show. I think it's the perfect move. It's like adding Carrie Underwood on American Idol. Brilliant move. I think that that's always a good way to go.
Yeah, and because you already know everything about it, and it's just like you're already part of that atmosphere, so it
Right.
makes sense. Well, speaking of that, back to this season in particular, who do you think is going to win and make it to the finals?
So I think that, honestly, I'm going to say Joey. I think that Joey is my
Yeah.
winner pick, because I think Chandler is the better dancer technically, probably, but I think that Joey has a larger fan base that's voting. And I think that will help him get the edge over Chandler. In terms of who's going to make the finals with them, I think that Steven probably is going to get there, and probably Danny are my 2. That I think that those are going to be the final 4.
I was hoping we were gonna have different opinions, but we had the same. We haven't talked about this before this, so I was like, oh, maybe we'll have different thought. But no, I also think Joey, and I was thinking that Chandler. Oh, actually, well, I think Chandler's gonna make it to the finals also, as well as
Oh yeah,
Steven
yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah. No, I think I was thinking her as runner up. Like, and
Oh,
then I
okay,
was
okay.
adding those two.
And
Yeah,
then yeah, I was like, because you only said three.
because
Yeah,
4 make it to the finals. Yeah,
yeah. Okay, so
generally.
those four I think are also in the final. But yeah, because Joey, I think also Jenna is just like such a liked pro as well, which
Hmm.
makes that also like I feel like in previous seasons when I watched, like I loved watching Derek and seeing him, like whoever he was with, I'd be like, I want Derek to win. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes you think about the pros, not always like the partner. And so with the celebrities, so I think because everyone likes Joey and Jenna, that makes them even more likely in that sense. So
We're at the point now where some of the pros have a larger following than their celebrity partners,
yeah,
which is kind of crazy. But like, we're at that point where like people vote for the pros just as much as they do for their partners. Like, that's why usually newer pros don't do as well, just because half of that vote, that people might be voting for doesn't exist yet. And then they gain a fan base as time goes on. But like Ezra, for example, as much as people, liked Ezra from, him being on the troop for so long, uh, he doesn't have the same fan base as the others. And he ended up being the first one out. So, I think in the future season, he'll have a better shot at it because it feels like now he's gaining a large fan base, but he just didn't have that existed. And so along with being with the most controversial celebrity, probably
yeah,
didn't help things.
yep. Well, this was fun to cover at the Enter the Stars. Hopefully, you guys
Yeah.
are also watching it. If not, you're probably seeing TikToks about it. So that wraps up our episode today. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to follow us on Let's Chat Reality on Instagram and our TikTok. And we'll be sure to chat with y'all next week. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye, everyone.